Welcome to this week's installment of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don, and with me, as always, is my podcast partner and canine captain, Kevin Maxwell.
Just call me Rover.
Rover. Rover. Very appropriate today that you're Rover, because we have a unique story today from a husband and wife team who co-founded a company here in Scottsdale that provides custom bracing and prosthetics for dogs and other animals. It's called Pet Ortho Braces, and it was founded by Diana and David Vowels. And welcome, Diana and David, to you both.
Hello.
Wow, thank you very much for having us.
You guys got a great story. You know, pets are part of our families, and so when they get injured in ways that limit their mobility, you know, as a pet owner, you're compassionate. You want your pet, your loved one, to be taken care of just as though he was your sibling or whatever. So you want solutions that meet your pet's needs and get them back to a healthy, active lifestyle as quickly as possible. And that's where Diane and David are doing with Pet Ortho Braces. It's a Scottsdale-based business that provides custom orthotic braces to veterinarians and pet owners. They provide non-surgical treatment for dogs with torn canine cruciate ligament injuries. They also make other braces, prosthetics, and wheelchairs for pets, including horses and other animals. So what a cool deal. David serves as president and leads the clinical operations. Diana is the operational lead, and she provides strategic planning and operational guidance. So let's dig in and learn a little bit more about your backgrounds and hear your story about how you got where you are today. And Diana, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here today. Happy to be in Scottsdale. We came to Arizona. Dave and I moved here about 20 years ago, and I was in media, and Dave was in prosthetics and orthotics. So he's been designing prosthetic limbs for 20 plus years. I left media a few years later, and we had the opportunity to get into the prosthetics business and acquired a company here. So we have the opportunity to buy the company where David was working. I left media and we dove in full speed and bought the practice. So we were running prosthetics and orthotics practice for humans for about 8 years. We ended up selling it to a regional entity out of Utah. And Dave stayed in the prosthetics world, gradually moved into the animal space. I moved into the tech and startup world and launched a few companies here. I launched Groupon here in 2015 and launched Galvanize, which a booming tech hub in downtown Phoenix in 2016, and continued to run that up until the pandemic. And a few years ago, well, I continued to work in tech and startups. I ran Startup AZ. I was the CEO at Startup AZ for the last couple of years. And meanwhile, Dave started working with animals. And should I let him take the story from here?
Sure.
Well, before we go there, tell us a little bit about how, where'd you grow up and how'd you end up getting to Arizona?
Yeah, so I'm from the Midwest. Dave and I are both originally from the Midwest. From Kansas City, went to journalism school, got a job right out of college in media with the Gannett Company, and I moved 8 times. So I was in California, Pennsylvania, Iowa, New York, Florida, Delaware, and then Arizona.
It's amazing you could say them all that quickly. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I've said that a few times.
You rehearsed, of course.
I was the good corporate soldier that took every assignment the company asked me to take, and in 2008, when the markets crashed and all of my revenue categories imploded all at the same time, I decided it was time to do something different with my life.
Right.
And that's when we had the opportunity to buy the prosthetics practice.
And I'm betting somewhere along that journey, you ended up meeting David somewhere along the line. So, David, when did you meet Diana?
Yes, she did. Yes, we met in Pensacola, Florida. So I am also originally from the Midwest, from southern Indiana, and I moved to Pensacola as a young man and lived there approximately 25, 30 years. And my brother and I were running a security company down there for several years, almost 10 years. And I remember the turning point was when we were installing security systems and running wires in the attic and things like that. I came out of this attic and I was sweating and I was almost, heat exhausted. And I looked at my brother and I said, there's got to be something better.
Right.
I'm going to med school. And so we chuckled, and a couple of weeks later, I was actually taking some courses and found out about prosthetics and orthotics, absolutely fell in love with it, started that pathway, and then ended up graduating with my degree in prosthetics and orthotics at the University of Washington in Seattle.
And so how did you get to Arizona?
So, yes, Diana picked me up, and
I thought that might be part of it.
And she forced me to go to Arizona. No, it was one of the Gannett transfers, and she was fortunate enough to have a great opportunity out here in Phoenix, and we were living in Pensacola at the time. And we said, yes, let's do it. Let's go. And
Never looked back, right?
Never looked back.
Yeah. What year was that?
We moved here in 2005.
Okay, you're here that means you're here for good now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, that time goes by fast. So you started talking a little bit about how you got to where you are with the company today, but back us up and to tell us the journey of how your company got started again. David, why don't you start with what you
Sure.
had?
So I had been working, we had our own company for approximately 8 years, and we had a great opportunity to sell the company. We had an investor out of Utah was looking at us pretty heavily, and it was the right time to sell. So we sold our O&P practice here, orthotics and prosthetics. And I wanted to retire, but Diana wouldn't let me. So
Yeah, I know how
Funny
that
how that
works.
works.
That's right.
Yeah.
so a gentleman by the name of Mark Robinson owned a company up in New Hampshire called Walk-In Pets, and he was one of the largest wheelchair providers in the United States for canines and other animals. And he contacted me and said, hey, I'd really like to start a custom division of prosthetics and orthotics to add to our line. Would you be interested? And it sounded just right up my alley. So that's how I kind of got into it. Worked with Mark for a little while. Kind of the short story is we started this company down here, and then the larger company, Walking Pets, was acquired by a investor company out of the UK. And they bought Mark out, and we kind of just took the orthopedic division and took it for ourselves and turned it into what it is today.
Love the story, Kevin. You hear that? That's how things get started in Scottsdale, right?
Yeah, and here's what I love about the story, because you and I both have known Diana for a little while, right? And so
Right.
we read the story in the newspaper about what they were doing now, and I was like, I know her. She's a tech executive.
That's right.
And has been in
That's
Phoenix for a
right.
long time. And I love stories where people who are in one career completely stop and pivot. And she probably could have get very successful, very talented, could have find other work in the tech field or the media field. She probably could have done that, but no, she pivots completely and now does something to give back and is working with pets. And there's not a better story than that.
So that must have taken some courage to jump out of your career cycle and to jump into something like this. Talk about what that felt
Yeah.
like.
Well, the first courage was deciding we wanted to launch the pet company.
Yeah.
And, Dave was looking at it and had worked with animals, had done a little experimenting on, brace designs and things. And I said, you could dive into this full time. Yeah. And the reality is, if it doesn't work, you can always go back to working with humans.
Yeah.
There is no shortage of amputees,
absolutely.
sadly.
Right.
So so I said, I think you should do it. And so I encouraged him to launch Pet Ortho Braces with Mark Robinson. And I was behind the scenes, set up all the operations, installed the CRM, got him on QuickBooks, all the things you need to do to run a small business. But I told Dave, I'm like, do this. You have so much fun doing it. And if it doesn't work, you go back to humans.
Right. Humans are always there.
Humans are always there. So I was running Startup AZ. So I was the CEO at Startup AZ for the last couple of years while he's launching the company. I'm helping him nights and weekends and kind of behind the scenes, making sure things are running. And he's the front-facing clinician and practitioner there. When we bought the company, we bought out the investors last July, so July 2023. And the business started growing, and we started getting more local referrals. So I was spending more time on nights and more times on the weekends. And Startup AZ programs were in pretty good shape. I had a good board. And I recommended to the board, I'm like, I don't think you need a full-time leader here. And I wanted to dive into the Pet Ortho Braces business. And I was like, let's see what we can do with this. So I dove in about 4 or 5 months ago, kind of have been spending the majority of my time there, focused there, growing the business. And it's grown every month. It's cash flow positive, so that's good for any
there you go.
business owner.
Yep.
So,
Well,
that's...
You were teaching companies through Startup AZ how to do essentially what you were doing with David.
Yeah, we were
So it's
accelerating.
still kind of in your
growth.
powerhouse, right? In your wheelhouse. Yeah.
Mostly software companies there. This isn't software, but a lot of the same principles apply. Company building is company building.
Right,
so
right.
yeah.
So talk about some of the products here you got for us.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
I'm going to have Dave talk about
all right.
those.
Yeah, so our number one product that we work with are ACL injuries for dogs. It's amazing how many are being affected daily. I was quite surprised how many happen on a daily basis. And So really your options with ACL injuries on dogs are 3 options. You can really do nothing and hope it heals. That very rarely happens. You can do a brace or you can do surgery. And so as I explain it to the veterinarians and the other clinicians that we work with is, we're a great tool in your toolbox. Surgery is good. It works very well, but it can be quite costly.
I bet. Yeah, right.
It's very costly. A lot of people don't want to put their dog through surgery, and because they do, I'll back up a little bit. The number one procedure for that type of injury is called a TPLO. It's a tibial plateau leveling osteotomy, which means they cut the bone, they reposition it, they put plates and screws in to make it stable, so that the knee can then actually heal itself. Well, what we do is we stabilize it with a brace externally and wait for the knee again to heal itself. So basically, we're getting the same results, just non-surgical.
That's great.
And these are, it's amazing how many of these are happening on a daily basis in this area.
Big dogs, small dogs, all of them get them, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's all different breeds. Some big, small, and young, old. There are some breeds that are more susceptible. That you do see German Shepherds, Labradors, Golden Retrievers tend to tear their ACLs a little bit quicker than others. And just for clarity, in a dog, it's called a CCL. It's called a cranial cruciate ligament because it's facing cranial. On humans, it's the anterior cruciate ligament because we're biped and we stand up. So it's the same ligament, same function.
CCL for animals,
That's right.
ACL, which we hear about all the time.
Yeah.
In sports medicine, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the exact same ligament, exact same function. It's just a different term because of a quadruped versus a biped.
So talk about your team. You got a team. I know I saw some of the names on your website, and you've got a fairly exhaustive, pretty good-looking team. A bunch of people in there, right?
Yeah, so Dave leads our clinical operations. He's our president and chief clinical officer. I lead strategy and ops. We have a technician who works for us who helps him with the production process. And we have an intern who is just graduating from GCU. And funny story about her, her name is Liz. She's wonderful. She is in the biomedical engineering program at GCU, just graduated. Was interested, had heard Dave speaking. I think you were a guest speaker at one of their classes.
Yeah, I did a guest lecture at GCU for him.
And she approached Dave and said, I'd love to see the business. Can I come and shadow you? Can I learn more about this? So she wanted to learn about the production process and how it fit into what she was studying. And then she asked if she could start doing social media posts for us.
Oh, wow.
And so I just fed her all the photos and videos of the dogs, and she does our social media posts for us. And
Which I am so grateful for.
Yeah, I bet. It's hard to find a good brand ambassador, right?
It
yeah. But the great thing about she just graduated from GCU and she posted on LinkedIn. She did a capstone project for her graduation.
Yes.
And she decided to do a 3D printed prosthetic for a dog.
Oh, really?
And she was awarded the top award. I think they called it the
she took first
top
place.
Bow tie, like the Golden Bow Tie Award, I think is what it was.
Oh, that's cool.
But
Yeah.
she got recognized and got her picture with the prosthetic, and so that was pretty cool. So,
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
so we like to think we inspired her to do that capstone.
Yeah, you did.
And then, of course, we work with a lot of veterinarian partners.
Yep.
We have a lot of veterinarians that will call us for consults when they're seeing an animal and want Dave's opinion of whether or not bracing could help. And we've started working with a lot of rescues.
Oh, really?
So,
Yeah, quite a few.
The Humane Society, Heidi's Village, several rescues have learned about us, and so we'll work with them and we'll make a small contribution to them to help them offset the cost, because usually it's a donor that's paying for the treatment, and usually it's because it's much more cost effective to do that than do surgery. So. Yeah,
exactly.
so that's kind of our team.
So most of your patients probably come in through referrals from veterinarians. Is that how you see most of your patients, if we want to call your canines patients?
Yeah, they do. We have I work with one surgical group just north of us that sends us actually quite a bit. And again, for some of the reasons that we spoke about earlier, just people may not can afford that type of money for that operation, or their dog may have some comorbidities or illnesses that keep them from being able to go under anesthesia. So and then also word of mouth. Our word of mouth has really gotten out. We have some clients coming over this week from LA. They're driving all the way from LA with their dogs just to have a custom
right?
custom braces made.
We even had one from LA approach Dave and offer to fly him to LA to evaluate his dog to see if he was a candidate, and if he was willing to travel over here to
Bring him
have
back.
bracing done.
Wow.
So I'm amazed at what people will do for their animals, and you know, it's pretty rewarding.
We also had a call from a woman in Texas that has a farm that was wanting to fly me out and build a prosthetic leg for her prize cow.
Yeah.
Really? Wow. So talk about keep going back to the products, but these are high-tech products, it looks like here, right? And what's the material, the compounds that these are made with? And these are sturdy pieces of equipment here.
Yeah, so the majority of our braces are made with a copolymer. It's a polypropylene and a polyethylene mixture, which they call copoly. And that gives it some flexibility. It gives it some mobility. It's also easy to heat, mold, and modify if I had to do some changes afterwards. It's as opposed to, say, a carbon fiber like you see on the high-tech prosthetics that I used to build. When you build something out of carbon fiber and titanium and stainless, it pretty much is what it is, and it's hard to modify afterwards. So these are much more user-friendly and modifiable, even though these are all custom-made. So I take a cast of the animal, take a mold, and then I'll pour that mold full of plaster of Paris, and then I'll work from that form with all my tools to shape it, push where I know I can push, and relieve the areas I know that need to have relief, so we don't get.
So every one of these are custom made?
They are.
Really, for a particular animal?
That is correct. These
No
are
kidding.
very custom for that particular animal.
So it's comparable to, you know, when you see NFL players wearing custom knee braces and they're running and playing. Those were custom built for them. So it's the same thing for a dog.
Right.
So broken bones, do you guys deal with broken bones too, or how's that work?
We do, yes. If we have some fractures that are non-healing fractures or acute fractures, I do get some calls where the veterinarians would like me to build custom bracing to hold that steady during the healing process.
You kind of wonder, because sometimes when a horse would break its leg, it means it's kind of the end.
Yeah.
Does this offer a solution that maybe it's not the end?
Absolutely can. Yeah, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. Why don't you tell them about the horse you worked on last week?
Yeah, so we did have our first horse just a few weeks ago. It was a small little mini pony, and 28 days old, a foal, that was born with what they call windswept arms. So both front legs went to one side. So the left arm was going left and the right arm was going left. And there were some issues in the joint capsule and laxity. So we did some custom bracing to secure that and allow that to start to heal and grow back into a more straightened fashion.
Wow. That's how long will it take for that to heal? Or to?
I think the veterinarian I was working with, I think he said that we'll probably do that for about 6 months.
Really? Is that all? Seems like a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you have cases like that where that animal might not be able to walk if you don't fix them when they're growing.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we are allowing the animal to have full mobility in its life.
And we did a custom wheelchair for a potbelly pig. It was a lot of fun. It was pretty funny, but we had a really good time doing it. A wonderful person up in Cave Creek, Danielle Betterman with Better Piggies, has a sanctuary up there. And
Did you know there was a pig sanctuary?
I did
in
not.
Cave
Called
Creek?
Better Piggies?
Better Piggies.
I had no idea.
It has 170 pigs.
Are you kidding?
I think she has
Really?
170 pigs right now. And Sabrina was born with a deformity where she's unable to use her rear legs. And so we made a custom wheelchair. So
Now she
Sabrina,
gets about.
she can get outside and
Squealing all the time now, right?
Visit her friends. Yeah.
She's a star on social media, too.
I would say.
Bet she is. Yeah.
So if I go to your social media, I can see her there probably?
Yeah.
You could.
And Better Piggies does some fantastic videos of their pigs.
Yeah.
So we tag onto theirs. But, there's some great
There's really
videos.
not an animal that we won't work with.
So we've got pigs, horses, dogs, cats, I assume, too.
Had a cat
Okay.
last week. We saw a cat last week for a fractured elbow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cats sometimes don't want to cooperate.
No, they're not.
Because they're a
Right?
cat.
Yeah.
They're not nearly as cooperative as the dogs are.
They also seem less likely to tear their ligaments because they're so much more athletic, it seems, than dogs,
Yeah.
maybe. But maybe that's just a bad perception.
Yeah. This was a unique situation. The owner was telling me the cat was getting a little rambunctious in the kitchen and got her leg caught in the oven handle door as she was trying and dislocated her elbow.
That's not a good picture. You can see that image. Yeah.
But it had a positive outcome. The cat's doing very well.
Let's go back to horses for a second, because there's been a lot of news in the horse racing industry lately, particularly the last 2 years, the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness with horses going down and dying, having to be put to sleep. Are any of the injuries that they suffer, would those be the kinds of injuries that you could actually design braces for to save those horses?
Yeah, there's multiple solutions for whatever can possibly happen to them, and they're and when I do an evaluation, I can recognize immediately too if it's not. I can just say I can't. There's no bracing's not going to help with this. You really need to go back to the surgeon or the veterinarian and reconsider what you're doing here. So yeah, there's it's almost endless what you can do with bracing.
So what would cause that then? Like multiple damages or like very, very severe damage?
Well, yeah, overuse syndrome. You'll get joints that are hyperextended and overused, and joints that will come laxed, and so you're trying to stabilize them and get them to heal a little bit better, and get some more stability in there so they don't stress them out, and possibly cause an avulsion fracture, which is when you stress a tendon too hard, you can pull a chunk of bone off of the bone, and so we're trying to prevent injuries like that.
One of the braces we brought here today is for an Achilles tear. So it, just like a human would tear their Achilles tendon,
Yep.
And then you can control the range of motion. So same kind of thing with animals.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you handle cases when a pet's resistant to wearing a brace?
Well, we've been very lucky. It's just a handful of those cases. You have to work with them slowly. We work with them in a reward system. We say, hey, look, every time you're going to put this brace on, give them a treat, give them some love, let them know that everything's okay, and slowly work into it. It's really comical to see all the different reactions of how when we put braces on these pets. Some of them just walk out the door like nothing happened at all. Some of them will walk out on 3 legs. Some of them won't move at all. And, it's funny. But, yeah, so it's the reward system actually works really, really well.
How do you deal with your human owners? Diane, is that your gig?
Dave manages the humans well.
I manage them quite well.
When they come in and we do the fitting, there's straps on the braces and they need to be applied properly so that they don't slide. Because when they slide down, they might cause skin breakdown or irritate the skin, and create a sore or something. You don't want that to happen because that's going to cause even bigger issues. So what we'll do when they come in for the fitting, we give them a kind of a best practices and where a break-in schedule. And what we've started doing is videotaping the person putting the brace on and then sending them the tape so that they can remember what they did in the office when they get home. Because, you go to medical appointments, they tell you a bunch of things, and you're like, yeah, got it. And then you leave, and you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
Same thing with this.
You go to a hair salon, they cut your hair, and you think you can comb it like that next time you get home, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so generally at delivery, it's mandatory. I demonstrate how to put the brace on, take it off and on, and clean it and things like that with the owner, and then I make them do it in the office while I watch them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Get some tips.
Yeah.
So, Dan, I was thinking originally that with your background, you'd have a pretty robust e-commerce, but these are all custom built, so you don't have that probably, huh?
Yeah, the business, I'll tell you a little bit about how we pivoted the business. When we first opened it, the parent company, Walkin' Pets, they're a big e-commerce site. They sell wheelchairs. They sell products that are different sizes and adjustable. And the founder originally thought this could be that same model. So if you're, in Ohio and you have a dog with a torn CCL, we send you a casting kit. We'll teach you how to cast your animal. You make the cast, send it to us. We make the custom brace. We send it to you. It fits perfectly and everything's
really?
fine. No. However, people are really bad at casting their animals.
I bet.
And if you get a bad cast and you're doing something that's custom made to someone's anatomy, it doesn't work. And so and then the other challenge with it being an online business is you don't get to see the animals to follow up with them. So if there is an issue, you can't make adjustments. So we found the outcomes. So Dave, he's the clinician through and through. He wants the outcomes to be perfect for all the patients. And we weren't getting that with the remote orders, unless the cast was done like by a veterinarian or a vet tech or somebody who knew what they were doing. But in most cases, if the pet owner did it, wasn't great. So we weren't getting the outcomes. At the same time, we started getting a lot of local referrals. So we decided the best approach here is to put together a bracing protocol that includes the casting, the fitting, the fabrication, 4 follow-up appointments, and any adjustments that they need. We don't want them to not come back in because they're afraid it might cost more or something. Right. We want the animal to heal and be treated. And we found that works really well. So
Yes.
we're getting the best outcomes, and we're getting the best Google reviews from all of our customers.
That's
So
great. Yeah.
And that was a very eloquent way to say that Dave is way too picky. Yeah, I was not getting the outcomes that I was looking for with the online model. And, this way, I'm a trained orthotist, so I can cast this animal. I can put my hands on him. I can see what's going on. And I have total control from the beginning to the end. And our outcomes just are, superb that way.
I like how these are not only custom, but I like the cool little design. I mean, could I get one with stripes on or something if I wanted to?
we can decorate it just about any way you like. Yeah.
That's really cool.
yeah, we use a heat transfer material. It's the
Yeah,
same
it's
thing
really
as
cool.
when they put patterns on fabric.
Right.
Same kind of thing.
Because the one I'm holding now for our audience is this got a little fish on. It's like the aqua,
Like Nemo.
Nemo. There's some aquatic fish on here, and it looks pretty cool.
This
Our
one's
most
called
popular-
Ice Age.
Yeah, that's Ice Age. Our most popular right now is probably the American flag pattern.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We have that, and we have the rainbow and paw prints and purple splash, and you name just about any pattern, we can put it on there for you.
And Dave did a lot of that when he was working with humans and doing their prosthetic legs.
right.
You can put any pattern in a socket. So if you ever see an amputee with a prosthetic leg and the socket has some of them you'll see like their Marine logo
Yeah.
on there or something about their lifestyle.
Harley
it's the same,
Dave-
it's
you
the
know.
same thing.
Really?
So
See
it's
Harley
why
Davidson,
not
American flags.
Yeah. So why not customize them for animals too?
Oh, that's
So-
great.
Other companies doing what you do around here, or how's that? Where you're getting business from out of state, so it sounds like you might be one of the few.
Yeah, there's a handful of people around the U.S. doing exactly what we do. What
Just a handful. It's very rare.
Yeah.
There's not too many of us that do this.
yeah, which is why we have people driving from
From LA, yeah.
Right.
So what you do see is you'll see online products like off the shelf type of things, like a
Right.
neoprene brace or a compression something or other, and they're pretty inexpensive, but you don't necessarily get the animal in the right position in order to heal and form scar tissue like they need to heal.
Dave wouldn't be happy with that outcome.
So yeah, so we've had dozens of clients come in because they bought something online that just didn't work. Oh. So they went for the really cheap approach. They weren't ready to do surgery, and then they kind of met in the middle and said, "All right, we're going to do bracing." And so there's a few folks out there. We're the only ones in the Phoenix area.
Is that right?
Yep.
And there's only 2 in Arizona, and the other one's not doing exactly what we do. They do theirs is like semi-custom.
I think the next closest, there might be a guy in Colorado doing it. But we still get a lot of travelers. A lot of people up north come to see us, and like we said, L.A., and I get a lot of calls from around the country. And it's usually retired prosthetists, orthotists like myself that are in this field because we're very mechanically minded. We're, we look at this from an engineering perspective. So it's a great, it's a great side hobby when you retire.
So you're a young company. What do you see? What's success look like 5 or 6 years down the road for you? What are you thinking as you look ahead?
Well,
Yeah, I have thoughts on that.
we
I
have
bet you do. Yeah.
So Dave's working on some brace designs, and he's getting close to being happy with them. A couple things from a production side. I, of course, want the business to be efficient. So we're starting to do some 3D printing of some of our designs. Some of the designs are suitable for 3D printing, and some aren't. So we're doing. In fact, he did a 3D printed prosthetic leg that he's fitting tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
so he's got
fitting
an animal fitting tomorrow morning. You guys are welcome to stop by.
Yeah, great. Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to see it sometime. You bet. Yeah.
But where I think it could go, one thought is doing the online model, but the technology is not there right now to cast an animal appropriately, and nobody's figured out how to create software to make a dog hold still.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So the technology is not quite there to do that. But where I see the growth opportunity is perfecting the designs and the business model, streamlining everything, and then do kind of a dealer model or a franchise model where we certify people. We certify people like Dave. They get their veterinary training. If they're trained for humans, we get them veterinary trained.
Right.
And then we teach them a technical approach and kind of create a franchise model or a business in a box. And he certifies the quality. The biggest thing is quality. He won't go for that unless he's 100% certain that the person, the clinician doing it,
Makes sense.
can do the work.
Yeah. That's a great vision. As you look ahead, and I think it makes a total sense.
Yep.
And we're starting to get invited to veterinary conferences.
Are you really?
So Dave's been a guest speaker at several programs, and we're going to one soon that's a veterinary specialist. Like, there's ortho specialty, there's, veterinary dentistry. There's all kinds of specialties.
Yeah.
But one of them we went to before did a case study on orthotic bracing, and had Dave join and used some of his case photos on stage. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
And I'm
the other
actually-
veterinarians are like, oh, maybe we need to know about this.
Well, I work with Diana knows multiple veterinarians in the area, and they all tell me the same thing, which they teach very little about bracing in school, very little. They just touch on it, and it's mostly for surgery is what they're concentrating on. So, I'm trying to get out there and do as much guest lecturing as I can at these symposiums and some of these other national conventions that they're holding. And I'm trying to also get in with Midwestern and U of A and their veterinary and maybe guest lecture in some of their classes of
Great idea.
graduating students to
Great
let
idea.
them know that they have options out there.
Huh. Dave joked earlier about, you said Diana wouldn't let him retire. I don't see him retire anyway. Right? If he sold the business tomorrow, lock, stock, and barrel, he would still have something to do, right?
Oh yeah,
And he's having fun.
I'm a workaholic. She shouldn't tell you when I'm not doing this. I do handyman work on the weekends. So I'm always doing something. Yeah,
He's a project guy.
I'm a project person for sure.
Another great story that starts right here in the heart of Scottsdale. So good to see Kev. We love these stories like this.
I was looking forward to this conversation for a long time, and you can see why.
So our thanks today to Diana and David Vowels for their innovative service with Pet Ortho Braces. What's your website?
PetOrthoBraces.com.
There you go. I thought that might be what it is. You could take a look if you're interested, folks. It's a great organization that starts right here in our hometown city of Scottsdale. So congrats to you guys. Thanks for spending time with us today.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks to all of our listeners. We'll see you next week for our next edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.